The thing about deep space is that it isn't quiet. People always imagine it as this silent, endless void. But when you're stationed on a listening post, orbiting a dead star, you realize it hums. Cosmic rays, radiation, the faint echoes of things older than Earth itself. They're always whispering, and I was trained to listen. That night, when the black hole shifted in my readings, I thought it was just background interference, maybe a calibration error, maybe my mind playing tricks on me after 6 months without real human contact. But then the pattern repeated, not once, not twice, over and over like a heartbeat. I froze, staring at the jagged lines on my console. It wasn't random. It had rhythm, a shape, something too deliberate to be chance. My hand shook as I pulled up the spectrogram. The static smoothed into something terrifying. Symbols, language. No human tongue had made those shapes. And yet, there was structure, repetition, meaning waiting to be unlocked. My AI assistant confirmed what I already knew, but was too afraid to say. This was not an accident of nature. This was communication. From where? A black hole has no surface, no escape. It consumes everything. And yet, the message came from the very edge, the event horizon, the boundary between reality and nothingness. I should have reported it immediately, but I didn't. I just sat there, staring into the abyss on my screens, pulse hammering in my ears, because in that moment, one truth settled over me like a shadow. The black hole wasn't silent. It had been speaking all along. We had just never known how to listen. I spent the next weeks unraveling the signal. Sleep became optional, meals an afterthought. Every burst of radiation, every pulse of Hawking radiation became part of a larger code. At first, it seemed impossible. How could anyone write into the fabric of physics itself? But the more I worked, the more I realized this wasn't crude scratching on cosmic stone. It was elegance, precision. Like someone had painted mathematics into the stars themselves. What I found shook me deeper than anything I'd learned in my career. The black hole wasn't a graveyard. It was a library. The information encoded in its radiation wasn't random. It was layered. History, diagrams, fragments of thought. A civilization had hidden itself in a place where time stopped, where nothing could erase them. At first, I thought I'd uncovered some kind of cosmic art, a monument to their existence. But as I dug deeper, I realized it was more than remembrance. It was survival, a record of who they were, what they had built, and why they had fallen. I reached out to command, but they dismissed me. Stress, they said. Isolation sickness. They wanted me to rest. But when the station's AI verified my findings independently, there was no room left for doubt. This wasn't hallucination. This wasn't chance. Someone had lived before us. Someone greater. Someone older. And they had hidden their final story in the one place. Nothing could touch it. And I was the first human to open the vault. At first, the data told of wonders. These beings had built cities that floated between stars, networks of energy that spanned entire galaxies. They had cracked the code of existence itself, but the stories grew darker. Their greatness had not saved them. The records whispered of something vast, relentless, and merciless, something they called the Devourer. It was not a species, not a fleet, not even a force of nature in the way we understood. It was a hunger, a predator that did not seek resources or planets, but minds, thought, consciousness. Wherever intelligence sparked, the Devourer would arrive, slowly at first, then utterly, until nothing remained. I read accounts of worlds stripped bare, of civilizations erased not in fire or war, but in silence. One by one, the great empires collapsed, their knowledge scattered like ashes on the wind. The black hole's message was their last scream into the void, hoping someone, anyone, would one day hear it. What froze me to the core wasn't their fear. It was their resignation. They had no illusion of victory, only survival through memory. And their hope wasn't that someone would defeat the Devourer. It was that someone would come after them, strong enough to try. When I leaned back from the console, my throat dry, my chest tight, the room felt too small, too fragile. For the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to be prey. Bringing the data back to Earth was harder than facing the black hole itself. Politicians, generals, corporations, they all wanted a piece of it. Some dismissed it as fiction, others as a hoax. But when the AI recordings were presented, when the patterns repeated themselves across multiple observatories, denial became impossible. The debates raged. Should we suppress the truth, hide it from the public, pretend humanity was still alone in the dark? Or should we prepare for something no one had ever seen? What surprised me wasn't the division. It was the unity that followed. Slowly, painfully, nations that had hated each other for centuries sat at the same tables. Rival corporations pooled their research. Enemies shared resources. For once, humanity stopped looking inward and started looking outward. The alien message had done something miraculous. It had reminded us of what we were capable of when we weren't tearing ourselves apart. We were fragile, primitive compared to the giants that came before. But we were stubborn, resilient, and unlike them, we had their warning. The choice wasn't simple. Live in denial and hope. The Devourer never found us. Or rise, prepare, and risk becoming a target too soon. But humanity has never been good at waiting. For the first time in history, Earth lifted its eyes to the stars, not with fear, but with determination. The day the first fleet launched is etched into me like fire. Thousands of ships, forged from every nation, every corner of Earth, rising together into orbit. Their hulls gleamed with alien-inspired alloys. Their weapons pulsed with energy we barely understood. We were children playing with God's tools, but we were ready. The world watched in silence. Billions of eyes turned upward as humanity made its declaration. We will not be devoured. We will fight. No one knew when the Devourer would arrive. Maybe tomorrow, maybe in 10,000 years. But we had chosen not to be prey. We had chosen to become predators of our own destiny. Standing there, watching the ships disappear into the void, I felt a strange calm. For all their wisdom, the ancients had hidden and died in silence. But we were different. We had grown in fire. We had survived extinction before. And we carried something the universe had underestimated for too long. Defiance. I looked back at the recordings from the black hole, at the desperate voices of civilizations long dead, and whispered into the abyss, "You trusted us with your secret. Now, watch us turn it into our weapon." For the first time, the abyss didn't feel like it was staring back. It felt like it was listening.